you've probably heard a lot of the same things. How much experience I have, all this stuff. But I think there are certain things you can demonstrate up front.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Realty Room. I'm your host, Miles Pointer, joined as always by Marcus Butler.
What's up?
Today we are going to talk about separating yourself from other realtors and how to create more value.
Yep, and before we get into that, guys, wherever you're listening to this podcast at, please follow us. If you're watching it on YouTube, like and subscribe, please. And if you'd like to follow Miles on Instagram, you can find him at Miles Pointer, myself at Real Mark Butler. That's Mark with a C. Today, we're going to dive into the topic, but first, I want to go over rates real quick here. Today, 30-year conventional, we're sitting at 6.5%. FHA and VA slightly beneath that, 6.25%. The Fed just dropped the federal funds rate by 25 basis points, so we know that's a 0.25% due to inflation last month being measured at 2.1%, just near their goal of 2%, which is great. In an interview with Jerome Powell to help explain this a little bit further, Jerome Powell says that at the next several meetings, they're expected to drop rates as well, which is good. So hopefully we see those rates come down. And with the new election results in, Jerome Powell also states that that should not have any near-term impact on their decisions, but rather they're going to use actual economic data. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Right?
All right. So creating more value than the other agents around you. That's what we're going to focus on today. And so remember last week we talked about value in general that a real estate agent can bring. And a term that we brought up a lot was what a good agent will bring. So really, what is a good agent and how do you become a better agent than others and kind of create that separation?
Sure. Yep. And one of the reasons why Miles and I think this is important, and I'm sure you do too, is because we all know how competitive this industry is. I mean, everybody knows multiple realtors, real estate agents. So, if you run across somebody even if you have a decent relationship with them, they probably have someone else they know. Printed out this report I saw this morning. Florida alone has over 220,000 real estate agents. Our state, and that's the state with the most. Our state of Idaho, we're sitting around 11,000. And then the state lowest here is Vermont with about 1,700 agents in Vermont. So that kind of tells a story right there. I mean, there's a lot of competition out there. You have to do something to set yourself apart. And NAR, I also read this morning, just did a new, a poll or a survey or whatever, and they found that 81% of real estate agents drop out of the business within the first 3 years.
Yeah. That's
rough.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. It seems like everybody and their grandmother becomes a realtor at some point, right?
Yep.
And I mean, we mentioned this last week a little bit, but how often people go with their family as their realtor when maybe that's not the best option. But you see a lot of that.
You do. And I think it could be kind of daunting for a lot of people knowing that. But the beautiful thing, in my opinion, is that there's a lot of agents out there that do hardly any business, and they have actually set the bar pretty low. So I think that, coming back to our topic for the day, if you can do at least a decent job or some job of explaining your value and demonstrating it to people, you should have a lot of success in obtaining business. I truly believe that. So that's the bright side of things for you.
All right, I'm just going to get into my first point here because it's kind of my biggest thing. One thing that you can do to separate yourself from other realtors is work full time.
Boom.
Like that's just if you're a full-time realtor, you live and breathe real estate, you're already separating yourself from a big chunk of real estate agents.
Yes, you are. I wonder what that percentage would be of people who are, it'd be hard to track, but full-time or a hobbyist in real estate, they do something if it falls in their lap.
I'm not sure, but if you're watching, I'll put the percentage on the screen.
There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. That is a major thing, because just being in the business every day, you're going to understand the nuances of real estate. You're going to understand the news, how the market's reacting, what sort of offers to put in on properties, and where opportunity for negotiation is going to lie. If you're just doing 2-3 transactions a year, you're out of the game. You're hopping into a new market pretty much every new transaction, and you don't know what's going on like a full-time agent. You just don't.
Yeah, I mean, a term that we've said before in this podcast, and something that you like a lot, is real estate just happens. On the other side of that, if you're not working full-time in this industry, real estate doesn't just happen.
You're right.
I mean, there's kind of it's a two-edged sword a little bit.
You're right. It's a good way of clarifying. For sure. You have to be in the office doing real estate activities, coming across people, etc. And real estate will happen. But if you're not doing those things, you're waiting for Uncle John to buy a house. Yeah.
And this, I mean, real quick, kind of leads into my second point of just if you're in the industry and this is your full-time thing, you're going to know all of the knowledge that comes with it. So like all the local knowledge, what's coming up, all that stuff. So.
Sure. When I was thinking about this, it kind of dawned on me, how do you explain your value to someone, or where should you start? I think the best place to start is, what are buyers and sellers worried about? Give them peace of mind, right? What's one way to demonstrate your value right off the get-go? Clear their fears. Right? Acknowledge them, let them know you have a process, that you know that those are their fears, and demonstrate what you do to give them confidence that they don't need to worry about that while working for you. So buyers, they're worried about buying the wrong home or making a mistake when purchasing a home and overpaying. Right? So if you have a process that helps clear that, for instance, right off the get-go, I tell every client, before you put an offer on any property, I will do a full detailed CMA on that property, so that you can go into it knowing with confidence, hey, if I get it at this price, it's a screaming deal. If I get it at this price, it's a great deal. If I get it at this price, it's still fair deal. And if I get it at this price, I'd be overpaying. Right?
Yeah.
And that's for buyers. On sellers, they're worried that their house isn't going to sell, or they're going to leave money on the table. So it's just, again, a CMA will clear that, and just overall communication, right?
Yeah, I like that.
So I think starting with the fear and clearing the air right off the get-go is going to demonstrate your value right there. Boom, you just gave them peace of mind.
Yeah. I mean, at the beginning of a transaction, you have to speak your value and know what value you're bringing. And then throughout the course of that transaction, you have to be able to demonstrate that value that you stated up front is actually true.
You got to back it up.
Yeah.
That's for sure. You can't go around giving false promises. That's not going to end well for you.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be one of the 81% that falls out in the first 3 years.
Yeah.
And we don't want that.
No.
Yeah. Another thing that I've always felt resonated well with people, and it seems kind of weird, but explain to them what it's like working with you, or what it's going to be, maybe word it in a way like what it's going to be like working together. Have you ever done that?
Yeah, explaining your process. So I always tell my clients up front, like, this is how I work. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, one thing, it's actually on my list here, is communication is huge. But backing up from that, at the beginning of working with a client, I tell them, I say, hey, I will contact you every single Monday, because that's my process. I contact my clients that are under contract every single Monday to let them know kind of how the deal is going, regardless of if there's been action on their property or not. And so there's certain things like that. There's also, I have email templates that I send out to or templates of emails that I send out to clients every step of the way. So I tell them up front, I say, hey, every single Monday, I'm going to be in contact with you regardless if there's action. Also, every step of the way, I'm going to be sending out detailed next steps of what you need to focus on. And I kind of up front prepare them for how I work.
Yeah. And I think what's beautiful about that is what's another thing, especially, and we talked a little bit about this last week, but the level of scrutiny within the real estate industry, and especially with people who have done real estate transactions in the past and were happy with their real estate agents. I know a big worry is that my real estate agent didn't do anything. I really feel like they didn't fight for me, or they didn't communicate with me often. They listed the house and I didn't hear from them for 2 weeks. They weren't keeping me in the loop. All these little things right off the get-go, you're explaining to them that you're going to be touching base every week. And a lot of people, like even those agents who seem to have failed because they weren't communicating with their clients, even if nothing big happened, but you were touching base with them every week, even if nothing happened, it still clears that air. They don't feel like you're not doing anything. They know that your head is in their file, that you're there, reporting anything notable, right? So I think that's great. And I think that's why it's so important to explain just your process for one, but also just paint a picture of what it's going to be like working together.
Yeah. I have this listing right now. It's a piece of land kind of way out in the boonies, on honestly a terrible road. And so we've been on the market since April.
Sounds like a fun one.
April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. So we've been on the market for 8 months, and we've probably had a total of 10 showings on the property. No offer. I mean, just it'll sell someday, but it's just a very undesirable property. And I have been in communication with them every single Monday, and I've gotten thank yous from them. Like, nothing's happened on their property. It's been on the market for 8 months. And that's actually after it expired. So it was on the market for a year before that. And they have thanked me for updates and for what I'm doing, even though
not a whole lot's happening.
I feel like nothing's happening with it.
But you're staying in touch with them.
Yep.
Weekly. They're not sitting there brewing, going, my agent's not doing anything.
Yeah.
Just because of your updates.
Yeah. And just meeting the needs in general of your clients. I mean, communication is a major part of that, but just having some basic social skills is huge. Like, especially working with buyers, knowing what they need, even if they don't outright say it. And we're kind of in charge of balancing the emotions between a buyer, a seller, the other agent, the whole transaction. We play therapists sometimes, right? And
yes, we do.
So having those social skills is so important in showing value.
Yep. And they might not know that until they work with you.
Mm-hmm.
But, again, we talked about this last week, buying and selling a home and moving in general is up there with, the death of a family member as far as like one of the biggest stressors in people's lives. And people are selling their homes for all types of weird reasons, right? Again, there could be death in the family or change of family status, all these different things. And I think that's kind of why, some transactions you end up being somewhat of a therapist, is because they are jacked up in this moment. They have a lot going on, a lot of stress, a lot of emotions. Mm-hmm. This could be their family home of 30 years, whatever it may be. And being there to chat with them about different things is, I think, huge. Helps you build a relationship. And again, they're not going to know this until you work with them. You're not going to go tell them, don't worry, I'm going to be there for you when you're really stressed out and all these things. But, after having worked with you, that's you backing up that value that you tried to explain in the beginning, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say that if you don't like working with people and you're a real estate agent, it's time to move on.
Yeah. Some of them you get, the relationships get interesting.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
You know, and back to your communication thing. Honestly, communication's probably the biggest thing, and it's obviously something you have to back up. You know, it's hard to go in and be like, oh, I'm such a good communicator. You know, you're not going to try and sell yourself like that, but that is something somebody 100% will notice throughout the transaction, and it will make or break their opinion of you when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
Right? Or if it doesn't sell, if they decide to continue working with you in the future. And, you know, another thing to be said is going above and beyond. Like, communication is one thing, but some transactions, especially if somebody's like selling a home and then buying another one, they have so much stuff on their plate, let alone like moving their stuff. They're talking to the title company, they're talking to their lender, you know, they're trying to get repairs done on their house, like all these things. They're worried about cleaning their house. Again, you can't necessarily explain this to someone up front, but when you're backing up the value you bring during the transaction, you get a little tired over there? Take stuff off their plate, and because people don't forget the way you make them feel, right? That's something my stepdad told me growing up. You know, one thing people will never forget is the way you made them feel. And if they're feeling stressed out because all this stuff is on their plate, and you come in and you make their lives easier, and you gave them peace of mind and made them feel more relaxed, like that is invaluable to them. That is worth so much. I had a client yesterday. They're getting ready to close on their new home, and they have to be out of their old home, and they're trying to figure out how they're gonna, you know, make the move process and cleaning their old home work. And I just told them, hey, you know what? I was already thinking about hiring some cleaners for you guys to take that off your plate. Like, don't even worry about it. And she's like, oh my gosh, seriously? Thank you so much. Because I was stressing about that so badly. I didn't know how I was going to do it. You know? So I think those things go a long way.
Yeah. And it's totally something that, I mean, you never want to overpromise by any means. But explaining up front, like we mentioned earlier, how you do communicate and that you will be there for them, you can speak to that a little bit at the beginning.
You can. Mm-hmm. You can. Of course, you don't want to start off the relationship saying, you know, I'm going to hire you cleaners, and I mean, maybe that's your business model. Great. But don't, you know, overpromise or, you know.
Yeah, the worst thing you can do is overpromise and underdeliver.
Sure. But when the time comes and you see a need for it, and that's where you could step in, then go above and beyond. People won't forget it. Mm-hmm. What can you think of a moment in your real estate career that you gave someone like peace of mind when they were freaking out or anything like that?
Yeah, totally. I had a situation. This was my first listing ever, and so thankful that I had a good team and mentors behind me on this. But we were about a week away from closing, and it had been fairly smooth up to that point. But I get a call from the title company, and the lady says, hey, Miles, just wanted to let you know that I found a lis pendens on the property, and it was filed last week. And this is like a week before closing. And so first of all, for me, it's like, what is a lis pendens? You know, I'm like 2 months into this industry, and
pulled up Google.
Yeah. So anyway, so there was a suit that was filed from my seller's family member against her for, basically for negligent, being negligent about the care of their mother. And so just, I mean, family drama, right? It's
a great first transaction.
And so, so of course my client is calling me and telling me about all of this whole situation, how her sibling is, you know, anyways, a ton of family drama. I won't get into the details too much, but basically, I was able to, I mean, with the help of mentors, kind of knowing what to do and what to tell her, but I was able to, give her contacts right away to real estate attorneys, and I was in touch with the title company, and basically I knew what was going on all around the picture the entire time. So I was able to kind of help direct her through that. And so I feel like how I provided value to her was being very aware of what was going on in the situation, not only in her personal life because I listened to her, but also knowing on the transaction side what exactly the next steps needed to be to get her through that situation.
Yeah, you walked her through it a little bit.
And so at the end of the day, once everything was settled, I remember her calling me and thanking me for making that transaction easy. And I was like, oh, that wasn't an easy transaction, but in her mind, there was all these complicated things going on and all these complicated emotions, and the thing she didn't have to worry about was the transaction itself.
Yeah.
Because I was taking care of that for her.
Again, another point, people have all types of stuff going on when they're buying and selling homes. It gets stressful. You could definitely see it on some of your clients' faces when they are just stressed out with everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of one. Yeah, I guess I had a client who this was their second transaction with me, and we'd been looking for quite a while. We got the inspection done on the house after getting under contract, and they did come down on the price already. The inspection, the inspectors were there before I got there. I showed up, and we're like, "Oh, Hazel, how's it going?" and all this, and they just look at me like scared, and I'm like, "What's going on?" They're like, "This house is messed up," right? My client ended up buying the house, but there was so much stuff wrong with it. I mean, the floor joists, you go down in the basement and it wasn't finished, so you look up and you see all the floor joists. They were the wrong, I think they were 2x10s instead of 2x12s. And the spacing, I think they were 2 feet on center instead of 16 on center, or whatever the code was there. Upstairs, and they weren't even. All the joists weren't even. There was gaps, so the floor needed leveled. All the joists needed redone. All this stuff, all the flashing on the exterior of the home was not done to code. It all needed redone. It was a wonky house, but a really, really neat house. It was kind of built on a hillside and overlooked a pond. And, we ended up getting quotes, working together to get a couple contractors out there. And I mean, they were $40,000 repairs, which is it was 10% of the purchase price or something like that. And I just remember my client was like, "Marcus, am I crazy right now? I'm starting to freak out." She's about to close on the house in a few days. We actually were able to get the price down. And she's just like, "I might be making a mistake. Is this house even worth it?" All that. And I just had to sit and talk with her for a minute and be her little therapist / real estate agent, and just said, "Hey, you like the house, right? It doesn't matter if other people don't like it, or if it's not for you like the house." She goes, "Oh, I love it. It's my dream home." And I go, "Okay, well, we negotiated for them to handle these repairs. You got the money to make these repairs. As long as they do that and you're comfortable with it, then I think that you're making a great decision. I think that the house is totally worth what you're paying for it when all those repairs are done, and you love the house. I mean, what else can you ask for?" And I remember at the end, she was just like, "Wow, thank you so much for talking me through that. I was freaking out, but just hearing you say that totally gave me peace of mind."
Yeah.
And it's man, that's another reason why I love real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that was too long of a story. We can cut that off if we need.
No,
but
you're good.
It was a good one. It was a feel good story, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of dramatic situations that occur during a transaction, and it's our job to kind of smooth over those things, because not only are you working with your client who is dealing with, it's what probably is a somewhat stressful situation for them in the home buying or home selling process, but you're also dealing with a whole nother party. And oftentimes other agents can be dramatic about their situations. And so first of all, we don't ever want to bring the dramatic things that our clients say to the other party and complain to the other agent about those things, because they're negotiating for the other side, right? So we don't want to bring that to them. And we also, if we have title companies that are being hard to work with, other agents that are being hard to work with, lenders that are being difficult to work with, we want to try to bring as little of that stress on the transaction side back to our clients. They're already stressed, so we don't need to bring more things to them. You know, we don't need to tell them that the other agent is being a complete.
Mm-hmm.
You know what
I
I'm
think
trying
that's
to say.
I think that's
I won't say the word.
I think that's a mistake that gets made.
Yeah.
A lot, and I think I've even made that mistake in the past, where, you know, you relay stuff that you probably shouldn't to your client.
Mm-hmm. I remember one specific transaction I had. The lender was really, really difficult to work with. Actually, they ended up messing up the deal. We had to pull out. We had to cancel the transaction, and it was all because of the lender. And I was trying really hard in that situation to not just be like, it's all the lender's fault, you know, and just put everything on the lender. Eventually, it all kind of came out, anyways, but. Yeah.
You know, and that brings it to another point. Your Rolodex is valuable. Your connections and the people that you bring into the transaction to help your client is super valuable. A lender being one of the most important ones. I mean, working with a title company, I've seen that get frustrating for people where, you know, they're asking for stuff last minute and, you know, this should have been done previously, and random things come up and maybe just the communication's not there. They're not super responsive to your clients. But a lender too can make or break it. You know, if there's speed bumps through underwriting, and, you know, the lender has to adjust somehow on their end, go with a different loan product or go, you know, whatever it may be. Some lenders can make or break it. I feel like, you know, that your client won't even know how much easier their life was because they use this lender that's willing to work for you, because you send them business and because you have a relationship with them, that you're at the top of their list. You know? So I think there's a lot to be said for your Rolodex, and having cleaners and HVAC companies and stuff that will respond to you as quickly as they can, again, because you have connections with them.
This is kind of switching topics, just a little bit. But one thing I wanted to add, and I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on this because we have other episodes dedicated to this, but is marketing. It's a big way that you can separate yourself, is if you can prove to others that you are a little bit wiser when it comes to marketing, or you have a little bit different avenues that you go down when it comes to marketing. You know, most agents will have professional photos and put it on the MLS and all the other sites like realtor.com and whatnot. But if you can kind of prove that you go beyond that and go beyond the average agent, it's a great way to show your value too.
I agree. A marketing plan is one of the top things that will sell a seller on you, right?
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, especially if they have previous experiences working with other agents and they see your marketing plan and they go, oh man, my other agents, I don't remember them doing any of this, right? Yeah. Especially if you have like a YouTube channel or Instagram or something that you've proven to do really well on that. You know, that is really valuable. I've seen homes being sold on Instagram and buyers located before property even hits the market.
Yeah.
So I would call that extremely valuable.
Yep.
That saved everybody a ton of time and effort and stress. So, yeah.
My one last point, which I think this is probably the most important out of all of them, is the agents that I notice that are being top, or I guess the top producers, are people that are constantly learning. They're always looking for ways to improve, and they're always taking classes and trying to learn more about an area or about certain, documents. And I mean, it's just always learning.
Yep.
It's huge.
Yep, I agree.
And it's kind of a whole mindset thing too.
You have to keep learning, for sure. I mean, the people who are ultra successful, they didn't get there from, just being content with where they're at and knowing what they know. And knowledge is a huge thing in general. I was going to frame it from a knowledge standpoint, not a learning standpoint, but that's how you get to become knowledgeable. And knowledge is a huge thing for people. What areas are you looking for? What nuances in real estate could come up, and what can we nip in the butt before it even becomes a problem? Like, sometimes people don't even understand what you can save them from before it even happens. They don't even know that these things were potential issues because you came in with knowledge, experience, you were proactive, and you just cleared the slate for a clean transaction for them. There's a lot to be said for that. And that's something that's hard to articulate up front, because a lot of it they won't really fully understand. They're just odd nuances in the real estate or the region or whatever it may be. But knowledge is a huge thing. You got to keep learning, for sure. I would say another thing, and this is a little bit of a recap. If you work hard, go in with confidence, because there's a lot of people who aren't bringing to the table what you're bringing to, and that's hard work, your client's best interest, being proactive, all these things, willing to work for your client, I guess, to cut it into one simple term. So go into it with confidence, and I think the biggest piece is communication and demonstrating what it's going to be like to work with you. That's really what you're trying to do. This whole thing, demonstrating your value, it's all to paint a picture, because they haven't experienced it yet. They haven't hired you yet. Paint a picture of what it's going to be like for the two of you to work together.
Yeah.
Right? Another way of helping with that is use cases. And I think that you kind of have to come at it with two different perspectives, because you can have an agent that has 25 years of experience, which doesn't necessarily mean they're great, right? We've all heard that person. I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm like, okay, cool. And then there's the people who are, newer and might not have the experience. And, if you have the experience, explain why that's important. Again, the nuances of the business, the familiarity with the things that can happen in transactions and all that good stuff. But one thing that I think is helpful for somebody that's maybe newer or kind of just getting into the business is, if you don't have all these years of experience, you probably, unless this is your first transaction, you probably do have a couple golden nuggets or examples you can use from previous transactions where you did a really good job, and you can kind of speak to those, not boasting, but just helping them explain certain steps throughout the process where you were there and that you can definitely help. And that demonstrates the knowledge that you do have, and helps, make it seem like, you're not brand new, or at least what you're doing at a minimum.
Or at least listening to other agents around you that do have more experience, and listening to their stories, and maybe working through some transactions with other agents if you are, brand new or only have a couple transactions under your belt.
Yeah.
That can be huge, because you can take the knowledge that they have and the knowledge that you learned from their transaction and apply it to your future transactions.
Yep, 100%. How would you recap?
I'd say
everything.
First of all, you need to be able to speak your value, because that's how you get in the door, right? Is you need to be able to speak your value to whoever your potential client is. I like what you said, confidence. Go in with confidence. Remember that you are the expert. You are the real estate agent. You are the real estate expert. Although your client, you need to listen to your client and their wants and needs. Just remember that at the end of the day, they're going to hire you or another agent. And so if you come across with confidence, that's huge. Second, don't overpromise. but you need to tell them how you work and the value that you can bring. And then I guess after that, you need to follow through on that value, right?
Absolutely.
Do you have anything to add?
You don't want to be that 81%.
Yeah.
I think you did a great job of summarizing it there. I would just say a little bit of creativity in the mix goes a long way too. A lot, think about if you were a seller or a buyer and maybe you've talked to a handful of agents in the past, you've probably heard a lot of the same things. How much experience I have, all this stuff. But I think there are certain things you can demonstrate up front, your knowledge and through creativity. So you can demonstrate your knowledge through creativity. And I mentioned this on a previous podcast, but just mentioning a couple useful things, like for instance, when someone's selling their house, Ninja Selling did something great. And they said, when you're doing the walkthrough, ask if they have all the manuals to their house. This is something so simple, but it's super creative. Ask if they have all the manuals for, their dishwashers and their, the warranty stuff for their flooring. Can you put that in a nice binder, or give me the stuff to put that in a nice binder? And we want to put that on the counter. You know why we do that? No, why? And it's not why you do that. It's why do we, agent and seller, are one. Why we're going to do that is because it makes the buyers feel like you've taken really great care of your house. And they're going to think of that one thing, and they're going to be like, man, this guy knows what he's talking about. Because you just brought in a little bit of creativity, you shared a little bit about why you do certain things and why you don't do certain things, and how it's been proven over time why these negatively or positively impact the sale of your home or negotiating a price on a home you're buying, whatever it may be. So that's what I would add to it, is being creative and trying to demonstrate that you know what you're talking about, not by telling them, but by showing them through things you say and through data you bring, whatever, that you bring to the plate. Mm-hmm. I guess that's
I like that. That's good. Yeah.
Are we to wrap now, Miles?
I think so.
All right. Hey, guys, thanks again for tuning into the Realty Room. We come out with new episodes every Tuesday. Again, if you're listening to this in your car, whatever you're doing, please follow our podcast. If you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And if you want to follow us individually, you can follow Miles at Miles Pointer and myself at Real Mark Butler. That's Mark with a C.
Catch you guys next time.
Take care.